Hi, this is Stephen, and this is episode 22 of Astro Indicator Update, Excursions into Practical Astrology. And the date is November 22nd, 2019. Today, what are we going to look at? Well, this is another market update. I'm sure people who are interested in astrology and the markets might want to know what's going on, particularly in Bitcoin, but we'll look at Bitcoin and silver and the Dow Jones and the US dollar. We'll note a recent article about Bridgewater's Ray Dalio's big bet on the indexes. And then we'll get into Deutsche Bank's astrology transits and look at their progressed chart. Because Deutsche Bank is really a central, a central factor in what's happening in the banking system worldwide, and it's on shaky legs at the moment. So let's go into it. Okay, here's the gold chart. Again, this is Friday, November 22nd. The market has not closed, and I will look at my notes and kind of give you these. Again, these vertical lines are related to the astrology of this market. In addition, there are just some traditional technical analysis elements in here. Support and resistance lines are these horizontal blue lines. We have trend lines, MACD, RSI here at the bottom. Clearly, in the MACD, we are oversold. However, that can continue for a good while. As you can see, back in April, March, April, and May, it was oversold for a number of months and then started to go up. And now we're in this descending channel, or possibly we've broken out of a descending wedge. You can draw this differently. The green lines here, I just recently redrew them because it looks like we had a breakout and then a failed breakout, and now we're trying to break out again. However, if you look at this vertical line right here, which is an astro, key date, we may be in a very short-term pullback, which started yesterday, and we're somewhat pulling back today. I think this is temporary, and that's the main point with a number of these markets. This is temporary because we do have some historically bullish things coming up on the horizon. And I'll just give you those dates, and you can make a note of them. This is not financial advice. I'm just sharing with you my research. But historically, when I see these things happening, we do usually get a bounce. And in the gold market, coming up on this line right here is December 3rd, which is a Tuesday. And that's traditionally, maybe not right on the button, but kind of give me a day or two leeway. But usually that's bullish. And then again, if we look ahead on December 15th and 16th, this line, that again is a traditionally bullish energy time period. Okay, so hang in there, bulls or gold bugs or whatever, and we may just trade sideways into those December dates, because I see this market bouncing in December and January. So play the technicals, protect yourself if need be, but some more positive energy dates are coming up. Okay, look at silver. Now these two, obviously these two kind of trade in tandem, and sometimes one leads the other, but I'll just give you the dates that I see upcoming in silver. With silver, again, this traditionally, it's hard to see. Oftentimes you can see them down here, but when they're all kind of crammed together. On December 6th, okay, that's a Friday, few days after that bullish gold date, this is historically a strong bullish date. We may be in, sort of a sideways, trading pattern right here where we're consolidating after a tiny little bounce. But again, just like in gold, we have some bullish things happening in December and even into early January. So you can have that, the awareness of that is coming up. But again, those dates are a little ways away. We could have a pullback here. So hope you have some understanding of technical analysis, because you want to play the technicals as well. Combine them with the astrology dates. We are very oversold, almost having a crossover in the MACD. Bitcoin, big dump, okay, which I have to admit surprised me a little bit, because this date right here in Bitcoin, which was just a few days ago, on the 17th, I sort of thought that it was going to be a bounce higher, but it was a key date, as you can see. Just immediately afterwards, we started this downturn. I should have drawn in a blue line that was just at that high, right there where my cursor is, because when we took out that high, which was providing some support, and we started to tank. We're bouncing a little bit today. We do not have an astrology date right now, but we have some, just like gold and silver, we have some positive things coming up. I see us trading sideways until we get to those dates. And what are they? Well, on November 30th, which is about a week away, we have a strong, traditionally a strong energy bullish date coming up. It's not as strong, quite as strong. This was, maybe one of the strongest in the year right here, but this is quite strong as well. In addition, on December 6th, which happens to be the same, day silver has some astrology going. That's the second vertical line. That too, historically, is bullish. So if you see us starting to break above, particularly if we break above this green trend line, start breaking through these blue horizontal lines, in conjunction with these energy dates, in my own trading, I see this as confirmation that this is taking place and that we're into a bounce. We're oversold on the RSI, not so much on the MACD, but we're getting down there to levels which don't happen too often in the RSI, is being oversold. So protect yourself, but I think we have more positive dates coming up. Dow Jones. This one's tougher to forecast, because there's so much, seems like there's more manipulation here than any place. Having said that, this last blue date that you see at the high in the Dow Jones, and here I use a ETF as a proxy, so I'm using DIA, which you see up in the corner. So, the metrics here are a little different, but the pattern is the same. So this very last, so this very last astrology date right here, which took place on the 18th, is often a reversal date. Okay, I say that with some qualifying, with some reservations, because all the powers that be want to see this market moving higher. But traditionally, this is a reversal date, and when we get a period of time where there's very little astrology, often, not always, but very often, particularly when we're overbought, which we are, we see the market drift lower. And you can see this happening, back here. Here we had not too much in this gap between these two vertical lines. We see a drift lower, okay? Kind of, you see it right through here as well. We were a little bit overbought and we start drifting lower. When we're oversold, that doesn't apply so much. Going back here, we had a big gap. The momentum just had us moving higher. So here, if we take out that low of several days ago, where you see this long wick on this candlestick, that might be, a speculative bet that this market could drift lower. But I do not see anything in the near term astrologically that should keep this market up. However, I have to admit that I have lost a little money trying to short this market. So let's move on. Here's the US dollar. The US dollar, when I usually only use the most significant astro dates here, but very often they mark reversal points. We do not have a reversal point right here, and we have the dollar kind of bouncing up against a resistance trend line. Upcoming, let's see what I see upcoming here. The 29th, I'm looking at my notes. Well, that's December 1, which is a Sunday, okay, and it may move into, gets a little tricky on the weekends if some of these dates happen on the weekends, but, possibly on December 2nd, we may get a bounce. And then we do have a change, definitely some change period happening in December 5th. So, right now, we just from the technical standpoint, we're making a lower high, and we want to watch this trend line, okay? I don't know if we broke through. I'm not sure if that would last. But just mark your calendars for December 1st and 2nd and see which way the market is going. If we head lower, then we're heading lower. But, on the fundamental levels, there's just, many, many things that you would think would undermine the dollar, whether on the international level or the Federal Reserve and so forth. But, it's much more buoyant than most people would think it would be. Well, this article just came out today, November 22nd, Zero Hedge. It's about Ray Dalio, who's the head of Bridgewater, one of the largest hedge funds in the world. Who knows? People don't know what his motive is exactly, but he seems to be very negative on the markets, and he is making a $1.5 billion options bet, buying puts, that the market is heading lower over, up until March. So, factor that in. This guy manages a lot of money, and that's where he's kind of putting making his bet. So let's look at Deutsche Bank a little bit. Now, if you're not familiar with the long-term chart of Deutsche Bank was trading 10 years ago at $150. Okay, it's trading at 7 right now. 5 years ago, it was trading around 50. It's the most important bank in Europe, the largest bank in Germany. It has around $50 trillion of derivatives on its books. Compare that to Germany's, what did I just say? 50 trillion, 3 trillion. I mean, Germany's GDP is around 3 or 4 trillion per year, okay? And it has 50 trillion of derivatives, which are basically, bets. And so here we have a market that, a bank that, could be the reason why our Federal Reserve is putting money back into the system, because the overnight lending that goes on between banks, that's becoming more precarious, and Deutsche Bank could be involved. No one really knows. But here we have a market that's trading sideways. You could say it's consolidating. It could be making, if you didn't know anything about the fundamentals, you could say it could be basing or whatever. But the fundamentals are not good for this bank and for the banking system in general. And so play the technicals. Here we have a triangle forming between these two angles. Recently, we just got a little bounce happening. But here I'm going to get into, in the next few slides, I'm going to get into looking at the astrology chart for Deutsche Bank, okay? And a number of videos in the past, I can't remember which episode it was, I did research on when Deutsche Bank was founded, and I really found very specific times and dates and the history of it. So the astrology is pretty accurate with Deutsche Bank. So let's get into it and see what's coming up. So here's in astrology, this is the sort of the birth chart of Deutsche Bank in the center here, this ring. And this is called the transit chart. However, I've moved it ahead to next April. Okay, this is April next year. This is where the planets will be next April. Because even though it was symbolically, it was affecting Deutsche Bank this year, what we see becoming more precise and more, significant and stronger next year is the transit of Neptune to the chart of Deutsche Bank. Because here we have the sun, look at my cursor right there, we have the sun at 19 degrees Pisces, conjunct Mars, and next year we're going to have Neptune precisely conjunct the sun 2 times, and I believe 3 times if we get into 2021. There's a range of meanings for each symbol in astrology, and I'm not going to go on and on about this, but one of them, if you tie that into what's actually going on with the entity involved, in this case Deutsche Bank, is that you see things kind of crumbling for this bank. And one meaning for Neptune is dissolution. It's dissolving, okay? And it's, in a way, the sun in any chart deals with identity and direction. And here we have a bank that is just losing its identity. It's going under, which is sort of related to drowning, and Neptune is related to water. So we have a bank that I think is going under. Next year is probably it. It may go into 2021, and I'll get into that for a minute. But we have Neptune very strong. It's undermining the strength of that, symbolically undermining the strength of that bank, and it's impacting the energy of that bank in a very strong manner, conjunct the sun and squaring the moon. Okay, so it's going to be confusing, chaotic, and I think it's could indeed happen, start really showing up when we get into April. It moves past, it comes back in September, and then I think it happens again in January of 2021. So repeatedly, it is impacting the chart of, Neptune's impacting the chart of Deutsche Bank. So let's look at another way of analyzing this, and that's what we were looking at transits in the last slide, and now we're looking at the progress chart. We have the same setup, birth time of Deutsche Bank in the center here. Now we have the progress chart of today, actually, in the outer ring. And so progressions are another way of kind of seeing what's the character and the quality of a time period for that entity. And here, the interesting thing here is that we have the progressed sun, which you see at 14 degrees Leo here. Just in 2 years, it is going to be squaring the natal Pluto, which is at 16 Taurus here. So it's going to move moves a degree a year. It'll be at 16 Leo in 2 years, squaring what's called the natal Pluto. Okay, this is very challenging. Whoever we're talking about, a person, a bank, a company, a country, or whatever, it means its essence is being threatened, essentially. And it may go through, a death-like experience. Okay, so this is, clearly from looking at it from astrological, perspectives. This is spelling out that, the end could be taking place for Deutsche Bank, particularly over the next 2 years. Will it be in 2 years? Well, the developments, the evolution heading in that direction, or the maybe not evolution isn't the right word, but the devolution, is just going to be increasing as we move to that point. So anyway, looking at Deutsche Bank, I think it's worthwhile. It's not, may not close its doors tomorrow, but over the next 2 years, things increasingly look bad. So that's it for today. Again, my name is Stephen. I have a master's degree in psychology, transpersonal psychology. I'm also an artist. I've been studying astrology for 40 years. I've been applying it to financial markets for 25. You can reach me if you have a question at astroindicator@gmail.com. I do consulting, and I accept Bitcoin as well. I do these periodically, not on a regular basis. I'm traveling a little bit in the near term, but I hope to, get back into making another one in early December, possibly. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be visiting you at a later date. Thanks.